Hey, welcome back, military journeyman. This is part 2 of the Rescue Swimmer video series interview. So if you want to see the other parts, I'll include it in the description box. This is a playlist. I'll include that down below. But let's just jump on into it. If you wouldn't mind walking through what could you break down exactly from a person that is joining the Coast Guard to getting getting through Rescue Swimmer School? Because I know that the programs kind of change. I'm not aware of what exactly people are going to now, but you said that there's a couple programs available. So what is someone who is interested in becoming a rescue swimmer? What can they expect before they get to Rescue Swimmer School?
Yeah, so I'll just start from the beginning. So the first thing you want to do is you want to do your research. The Coast Guard has a bunch of jobs, and you want to find what jobs best suits you. But if it is rescue swimmer, then what you want to do is you want to go and talk to a recruiter, and the recruiter is going to kind of lay out your options for you. And we have a new program now, so we call it the Type 2 program. And if you show up and to the recruiter's office and you say, hey, I want to do the Type 2 program, and you pass the ASVAB test, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, and you get a qualifying score on that test to go to Rescue Swimmer School, then you could say, hey, I want to do this rescue swimmer thing, and I've been training for it. And the recruiter will say, okay, well, we're going to give you a standard PT test, which is 50 push-ups, 60 sit-ups, and a 1.5 mile run, and a 500-meter swim. If you do really well on that, you can qualify for the Type 2 program. So once you sign all your paperwork, you get it's not a guaranteed A school, but you go to boot camp, and in boot camp, you get the opportunity to work out with 2 rescue swimmers who are assigned to Training Center Cape May, and you go and work out with them. I'm not sure if it's every day or if it's just a few days a week. And then upon graduating boot camp, if you do well, you get to go to what's called a preferred unit. And a preferred unit is basically not a boat. It's not a boat. It's not a small boat station. It's a unit that has a gym and a pool. And it's a place where you could train. So once you're at that unit, you'll be assigned a mentor. And that mentor is an AST who will reach out to you periodically and help you through the entire process of getting ready for swimmer school. So throughout that, you're going to get orders to come to Training Center, Aviation Technical Training Center, Elizabeth City. That's where Rescue Swimmer School is. And we're going to put you through a 1-week program. It's called the preparatory program. And it's kind of like a job interview. If you do really well, we give you a thumbs up and we say, hey, you should come back. And if you don't do well, we say, maybe you shouldn't come back. And usually people take our advice, and then you go back to you go back to the unit that you came from, and you finish out your training with your mentor. You get your flight physical, and then you come to Rescue Swimmer School.
Wow, that's a really cool program, and very different from when I went in. I know that before they had like a 6-month airman program, and people were still dropping from that. When I went, I just tried. I was like, hey, on my dream sheet, I said I want to go rescue swimmer. Don't put me on a boat, and so I got a small boat station. But then they would just send you to Rescue Swimmer School, and if you dropped out, you'd have to spend a whole year before you could even put your name on an A school list, let alone go back to Rescue Swimmer School. And I know that there was like different levels of how far you got into it, but that sounds like a very cool program. Is that available just to anybody? Is that something like that they actively are selling at recruiting offices?
It is, yeah. It's available to anybody who qualifies, right? So you have to do good on the ASVAB test. I remember, man, I studied like every day for 2 months for that. And I remember I was like, I've never studied for anything this hard in my life. And I got it by 1. I made it by 1 point. And I was like, yes, 1 step closer, But now, yeah, you take that ASVAB test, and then you go to your recruiter, you pass that PT test, and they'll get the ball rolling.
Now, what about, let's say you go there and you're not ready? and you have to go back to your unit. Can you prepare again for the school, or is that like a one and done
Are you talking about the preparatory program?
for the preparatory program?
Yeah, for the preparatory program, if you're not ready, you still have the choice to go back and train and come to Rescue Swimmer School. We just give a recommendation.
Very nice. And did you say that there was another program that you can go if you do want to go to school, or another option available?
I think the other option is just the old-fashioned way of joining the Coast Guard, being a non-rate for a year, 2 years, putting your name on the Rescue Swimmer School list, and you'll still come to the prep program. You'll still get a recommendation, and you go back to whatever unit it is. Maybe it's a small boat station, maybe it's a big 378-foot cutter, and then you come back to swimmer school after that.
Okay, so the big difference now is that you don't just go to Rescue Swimmer School. You have to go to this prep school, and then if you either pass it or don't, then you go back to your unit, correct?
That's pretty much correct. It's not a pass fail. It's just it's a quick job interview. It's a 1 week job interview where you get a recommendation based on your performance.
So it's not like is it a swim test, like a physical test? You're not doing like water confidence drills during that week?
That we are doing water confidence drills that week. It's a very scaled back version of what swimmer school is going to be like. We give a little taste of what swimmer school is going to be like, but it's a much more laid back forum than swimmer school. But we don't have any secrets. We lay it out. We show all the prep students all the drills that really get people hung up in swimmer school, and it's actually working. We're getting larger classes to graduate now after we started the prep program.
Now, hitting on that, what are those drills that really get people hung up?
Water confidence drills, those underwaters, anything from underwater laps to the buddy brick to we swim with the brick out of the water a lot with no fins on. It's extremely difficult. And you do it a lot, and you do it for a long time, and if you stop, you fail, and that gets people. We lost 3 people yesterday during water confidence. Out of 17 people, we lost 3 people just for water confidence drills.
And what week was that?
That was week 3.
Week 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about like explain the school, like what can people expect from start to finish for the school?
Well, what can you expect from start to finish for the school? Well, you're going to live and breathe it for 6 months. You're going to live in the barracks. You're going to be eating at the galley. That's our Coast Guard version of a cafeteria. 3 meals a day, and you are going to be extremely sore and tired for a pretty long time until your body gets used to it. For at least I'd say at least a month, you're going to be extremely sore and extremely tired, extremely stressed out. And if you can make it through the first 8 weeks, generally, you're looking pretty good.
So
generally.
So does it just like kind of loosen up after the first 8 weeks? Like, what is that first 8 weeks exactly?
So I wouldn't say it loosens up. I would say the caliber of people who make it through the first 8 weeks there's such a high caliber that it just makes it much easier for us to train really hard rescue scenarios. You're just getting people who just won't quit for nothing. Like they've been through it. We put them through the ringer the first 8 weeks. It's extremely difficult. So training after that is just it's a little more specific. We're not really trying to it's a lot more learning. A lot more learning goes into it after the first 8 weeks.
Because I know that I'm familiar with what maybe is happening after, because it gets a lot more technical after maybe the first 8 weeks. But
it does.
What exactly? Why is the first 8 weeks so intense, and why do so many people drop out?
The first 8 weeks, I think it seems really intense. and just a caveat to that, our training is totally progressive. So if you look on paper, the first 8 weeks are easier than the second 8 weeks, and the second set of 8 weeks are easier than the third set of 8 weeks. But what happens is you get people who maybe aren't as prepared who show up those first 8 weeks. And some of them are extremely tough and they last a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but then their lack of training catches up to them. And, or something unfortunate happens, they get an injury and they wash out. And then by the end of those first 8 weeks, it's really just the people who are extremely prepared and are extremely mentally tough that are showing up to that second phase of training.
So the first phase of training, from what it sounds like, it's more physically demanding, and that's kind of the weaning out process. And then the second portion is maybe more technical.
Yep, absolutely. That's a fair statement.
Okay. And so what can you, so let's say you've made it past like the first 4 weeks. Um, what happens from like that 4 to 8 week? Is it the same thing, just Groundhog Day?
No, it's different. I mean, it's the first 4 weeks are definitely it's a lot of getting after it all day. You're not learning a whole bunch. You're not learning a whole bunch. You're just kind of getting worked a lot. And then those weeks 4 through 8, you're going to start learning how to approach a survivor in the water. You're going to start learning how to deal with a panic survivor, and your sort of capstone for phase 1, which is in week 8, is going to be a rescue scenario where you put a survivor into a basket and send them up into the tower.
And is that the scenario where they're trying to attack you and you have to, punch them in the nose?
No, that scenario is definitely in week 14.
Okay. But you don't
Yeah,
punch them in the nose.
no,
Okay. So
sometimes.
so the first 8 weeks, that's kind of where you're kind of getting rid of capstone 1. What happens after weeks 8 moving forward?
Yeah, so moving forward, that's actually the phase that I'm in charge of. And we are just straight into what we call recovery devices. So the first thing you're going to do in week 9 is you're going to learn how to deal with a injured survivor with a back injury. So you're going to use the backboard. We call it the litter. Um, the next thing you're going to do is learn how to use the rescue sling. Um, and then in week 14 we go into that infamous test we call the one man, and that's your first time dealing with a panic survivor who does not want your help and just wants to hold you underwater. And that is a very, very challenging test. If you pass that test, you go into parachute disentanglement. And it's exactly what it sounds like. So as Coast Guard, we respond to all kind of search and rescue cases. Sometimes we respond to ejected pilots, and we pull them out of the water. So we have to know how to do parachute disentanglement as well. So that's the capstone of phase 2.
And then, so one of the things that maybe people don't realize is that Rescue Swimmer School isn't just physically demanding, but it is also very technical. Can you, and maybe people don't realize that a lot of people actually drop out from these drills, from these exercises?
Yeah, people fail out of Rescue Swimmer School too. Not everybody quits, and people fail because they do things wrong. Even a procedure that seems pretty simple, a procedure like if you just watch someone jump out of a helicopter, it doesn't seem very technical. But when you really think about all the aspects that go into it and the danger that's involved with it, it is very technical. And if you make a mistake, you do something wrong, you could kill yourself. So we have from start to finish, from just jumping out of the tower to pulling somebody out of the water, to disentangling somebody in a parachute, or dealing with multiple survivors. We have protocols for all of that. And some of our practical exams that we give have 60 procedures that have to be done, and it is very technical. We start small, and then it just builds and it builds and gets more and more technical.
How many would you say would actually drop out, or not drop out? How many people would you say actually kind of fail just because of how technical the school is? Or is it just primarily the people that make it through the physical aspect usually make it to the end?
I would say so. So I guess your question is how many people fail out due to just failing a procedure?
Correct, yeah.
Quite a bit. I mean, we'll lose. So let's just say if the class starts with 24 and finishes with 6, usually, you know, 10 of those people were maybe quit, and then we lost like, I don't know. I'm not too good at math here, but the rest of them due to failing tests. So it's not quite half-half. More people quit, but a good amount of people do fail out of school as well.
So what's the procedure? Let's say you mess up some of the procedure. Maybe you don't do something correctly. Do you just get sent back to your unit, and now you have to come back to swimmer school? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you fail out, right, we give you 3 chances. We don't just make you do it one time, and if you mess up, you get thrown to the wolves. It's not like that at all. We give you a lot of practice, and we give you 3 chances in the actual evolution. If it goes to your third chance and you don't pass, what we're going to do is we're going to recommend you for what's called a student evaluation board. And basically, a group of instructors are going to get together and we say, all right, should we retain this person and put them into the next class, or do we need to send this person back to the fleet? And if we decide to send that person back to the fleet because they failed and gave every effort possible that was made, we're going to give them what's called a no-fault disenrollment, and they're going to be able to put their name back on the list as soon as they get back to their last unit.
So what's the difference from what makes the difference from being able to just go back to the previous class versus going back to your unit?
Well, the difference is if you get to go back to the previous class, you're just going back a few months in training. If you go back to your unit, you're going to have to put your name back on the list, wait another year, and then get orders back to ASTA school, move your whole life back across the country, and start over. So it's a pretty big difference.
But like what's the criteria that would dictate you moving back a class versus you having to go back to your unit?
Okay, let's say we have a student who does everything in their power, but maybe they just weren't strong enough to get that evolution done. But we think, hey, and this is in week 8, we say, hey, we send this person back to the next class that's starting next week in week 1. Do you think he's going to be strong enough to pass this test after another 8 weeks of training? And we come to an agreement and we say, yeah, I think so. Then we'll put that person back in training. But if this person was barely scraping by the whole time, or had academic issues or integrity issues, we'll usually send that person away.
But what about in the later weeks? Let's say you're like almost at, you're maybe at your like last evolution. We haven't gone over the last phase, but let's say you're in these later phases and then you mess something up 3 times. Do you just get sent back to your unit, or how do you get moved back to a previous class?
If you're in a later phase and you don't do and you mess something up, you usually get sent back to a junior class. Most of the time you get sent back to a junior class. Some of the times we'll send you to a specific unit to train with rescue swimmers for 4 months and then bring you right back to start over again. But we definitely try to hook people up who want to be here.
Okay. And let's talk about the last phase. So the first phase is, that's kind of that grinding, weaning out. Second phase, it's you're kind of taking those people that have made it past that 8 weeks. Now it's getting a little bit more technical. You're getting up to that one-man evolution. What happens in the last phase?
We call it rescue strategies, and it's we make the rescue scenarios a lot more technical. Workouts are a lot harder as well, but the scenarios are a lot more technical. We put multiple people in the water. Some people have injuries. Some people are holding on to a raft or on a surfboard, and we make the drills. We make the students have to create a rescue strategy while they're pulling people out of the water.
And that last phase, can you kind of describe like what you could expect?
Yeah, the last phase is it's also 8 weeks long, but it's typically only about 5 weeks into that phase is when you'll know if you're a rescue swimmer or not. Um, and that's when you pass your final test. And but what people are going to have to expect is long evolutions, long days, having to make tough decisions, having to deal with people who are having to deal with survivors who are very agitated or non-compliant or combative, having to deal with injured survivors, all in the same evolution, and deciding who goes first, who stays, who can't swim, who can, putting flotation on people. We put little clues. It's like one of those escape rooms where there's a bunch of clues around and you have to put it all together. And the smarter you are, the easier the evolution is going to be.
So I'm going to wrap up this portion of talking about Rescue Swimmer School. Do you have any, before we move on to what being a rescue swimmer is like? So after you graduate and you've passed the school, you're now an aviation survival technician. Do you have any last things that you'd like to say about Rescue Swimmer School or the people that are interested in becoming a rescue swimmer?
Yeah, I definitely do. I would say train hard, train consistently, get in the pool, use fins, understand that you're going to be towing people through the water and that you're going to be underwater a lot. Be good at doing pull-ups, be good at doing push-ups, be good at all the stuff that you think you're supposed to be good at, but then also be good at the other things I talked about. And maybe you could put our contact information in this podcast so people can actually reach out to us and we could actually send them training programs and things like that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'll include everything in the description box, and I'm sure that these videos are going to get very, very popular. So I'm sure that you'll be getting a lot of people
Cool.
that want
That's
to get those workouts. But now let's talk about. So you've made it. You're an aviation survival technician. What can you expect showing up to your first unit? Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you're enjoying these, just smash that like button for me. Let me know that you are enjoying these conversations. If you want to see the full interview of this series, I'll include it right here. Or if you want to keep watching something else, you can watch this right here. Until next time, peace out.